But then I did notice on your website, and it's just made me think about the London Marathon again. You say that you've created chickpea testicles, jelly palaces, dinosaurs made of crumpets, and a talking toilet. And I did think, I wonder what it'd been like if I'd been passed by a chickpea testicle rather than an orange in the London Marathon.
You might have been passed by Daddy Pig. We also made Daddy Pig, who was running in the marathon this time. So Daddy Pig was running alongside Joe Wicks.
You're listening to the Occupational Philosophers with Simon Banks and John Rice.
Hello and welcome to the Occupational Philosophers, a not-so-serious business podcast that mashes up the world of creativity, curiosity, and a dash of philosophy. Each and every episode, I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, John Rice, over in the UK. Good morning to you, John. What's caught your curious eye this week?
Hey, Simon. So what's caught my eye this week is at the weekend, we had a family trip to London and we were going to see the Sony Photography Awards, Somerset House. And my son's doing photography, so we thought this would be an inspirational trip or whatever. However, we hadn't planned for the fact that it was the London Marathon. So it was absolute chaos. And one of the key stretches is right by Somerset House, which is at the 24.5-mile mark. And the reason I say that is because I have rather sort of traumatic memories of that, because I ran the London Marathon about 20 years ago. And at the 24.5-mile mark, I was passed by someone dressed as a Jaffa orange.
Peak athleticism, yeah.
And I was crushed by the fact that there I was, desperately trying to get a personal best. Well, anything really, just get across the line. And somebody carrying this however many pounds of extra weight as an orange just glided past me at the final stretch. And that was it. I think psychologically, I've hit the wall at that point and sort of crumbled in a heap and sort of crawled the rest of the way. So anyway, there you go. That was me. Beat by a Jaffa orange.
Okay, nice to hear.
What about you, Simon?
Look, you might have heard of this, the graffiti which was discovered in Pompeii recently. And it was with the use of laser guides or something along those lines. And it's in a street where everyone used to go have a pee at the back of a theatre. And essentially, it's the same stuff that people are writing on walls now. So nothing has changed. And it was something along the lines of, one of them was Arato loves. So John loves Susie or something you might scrawl on a wall when you're younger. So the same thing. People had drawn some gladiators fighting. So they're assuming they'd recently been to a fight. And there's a love message. I'm in a hurry. Take care, ma savar. Make sure you love me, written there. And a fair bit of insulting and vulgar language. A story about a sex worker who was paid to have sex with 3 men in the area. And there was a joke as well along the lines of, Michio Chocho, your father ruptured his belly when he was defecating. Look at how he is. So quite a harsh insult around that man defecating.
The only difference being there were no telephone numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Reach me at. Yeah. So I loved about that. 2,000 years, same stuff. Where where humans are just doing and saying the same stuff. And one other thing has caught my curious ear, and previous guest was talking around Ray's album, the UK singer, and have a listen to it from front to back. And I did it. Fantastic. So Ray's most recent album, I can't remember what it is, but make sure you listen right to the end. It's very, very cool.
Very good.
And it's just that joy of listening to a curated piece of prose almost, and talking and all types of music. Yeah. So tune in.
Excellent. Will do.
Right. Now, we have a guest this week, John. Who would that be?
We do. Well, Simon, where to start here? But today's guest is the creative director of Plunge Creations, which is a company probably best known for being the imaginative powerhouse in designing and making costumes for the Masked Singer UK version, which I think is something you've got in Australia as well. And I know it's in America.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a big thing. It's like one of the biggest sort of UK's family entertainment shows. And I think, it's got global reach. And as well as creating the sort of bold, crazy designs for the Masked Singer, which you'll probably recognize if you've seen it at all. They craft jaw-dropping props for cinema, TV including The Traitors.
Oh, yeah.
Which again is another global phenomenon.
Only the UK version, though. The US one.
Only the UK version. And the recent one, I think we watch it quite religiously as a family. So there was the 5 human-sized marble effect chess pieces sort of set out on a board. And then I remember there was also a traitor one, which had the sort of cloak wrapped over it, and it would glide ominously towards a celebrity and stop in front of them. It was proper chilling stuff. So I really enjoyed seeing that. And then for the latest Wicked movie, they created I guess you call it a sculpture maybe, but in St. Pancras International Station in London. And that just drew you into the sort of the world of Wicked. The Emerald City was brought to life, immersive details and magical surprises all set around it. And again, it does properly take your breath away, I think, as you see it for the first time. He is a creative all-rounder. He is, as by his own words, equally at home behind a computer, designing, visualizing a project, or in the workshop, rolling up his sleeves, working alongside the team. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to the Willy Wonka of design, creativity, magic, who lives in his world of pure imagination, is Tim Simpson. Hello, Tim.
Hey.
Hello. Hello.
Tim, well, let's start. What's caught your curious eye this week?
Obviously, there have been a couple of things, but the most recently was the David Bowie thing at Lightroom in King's Cross. So went up to King's Cross at the weekend to what used to be Coal Drops Yard, which was, is where I used to go to Bagley Studios and go clubbing on Sunday mornings with a lot of Australians. And now it's been turned into a sort of whole sort of shopping and eatery magical world in the sunshine, as it was. And but yeah, Lightroom is this sort of 360-degree video cube room, and there's the David Bowie thing. It was really nice to be in Bowie's brain for a few hours. Yeah, it was a real treat, and you get it's bits of him chit-chatting about this, that, and the other, and then his music cut together across the ages. Lots of sort of fun visual games, and you just sort of lay there and you stare up at this. And there was a kid right at the front. She had the zigzag painted on her face, and she couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, 6 maybe. And she was absolutely into it. And we bumped into her parents afterwards, and they said, "Yeah, we've watched it 3 times through. We had to drag her out." But she'd come home from school one afternoon and said, "Mum, can we download some David Bowie?" And she's been into Bowie ever since she was about 5. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Really fun.
Crossing generations.
Is this one of those immersive experiences where everything goes up the walls and the ceilings and it's around you and every room's something different? Would that be one of those 360?
Well, no. So you're not in different rooms. You're in one big cube. You sort of go down to 2 or 3 floors into the ground, and you're in this vast sort of cinema cube. And so there's sort of benches and you sit on the floor. And so it's quite informal. You have a time that you go in there, but you can watch it through time and time again because it just, the film loops. And you've just got sort of Bowie's brain going on around you in 360-degree vision. And the sound is great, and it's just good to be there again. It's fun listening to him whittering on. What you do notice when he's blown up to 60 foot on the wall is that there was a moment, presumably in the early noughties, where he had his teeth done.
Good old English teeth, yeah.
Was he a bit Austin Powers for the first bit, is he?
He always had sort of ropey teeth. During his heyday, he had really ropey teeth. And then at some point, he sort of transformed into having this sort of super white smile with this immaculate set of ceramics. So, but you really notice it when it's that big.
You can see yourself in the reflection after the 2000.
When his teeth are as tall as a human, they are dominatingly not very good in the 70s and immaculate in the last few years of his life.
Now, side fact, in Australia, when growing up, we always thought of England. We were told you didn't have baths. Oh, what was it? You only bathed once a week. That was what we used to believe. And everyone had really bad teeth. So there you go. Yeah. And I
think we still.
And my only insight into my dad's British, my only insight of British culture was watching shows like Cat Weasel or something you'd watch when you were you're homesick, and these really weird shows on TV, or like EastEnders omnibus or
Catweasel, he used to live in a water tower.
something like that. I couldn't remember it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you thought that was a typical sort of British person.
Well, that's all you knew. Yeah, I knew he wasn't atypical, but I just always remember it was quite cloudy, quite dark. And then it was that and the famous five. So that was our insight into UK culture and bad teeth. So where are you in the world and what can you see out your window?
I'm in Brighton on the south coast of the UK, which has been a party town since the sort of Regency period. So for a good few hundred years, Brighton has been a bit of a party town. We've got the Brighton Festival coming up. I'm looking out onto the back of a shed, but essentially onto playing fields. So there's playing fields and allotments outside the front of the house, and there are flowers coming up.
Ah, nice.
And so spring has actually sprung, although it was windy as hell yesterday. But the sun's out, and it's another sunny day in Brighton. It's always sunny in Brighton.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of guests recently from Brighton as well. Seems to be a nice creative hot pot, and also John's neighbours. So it's a good that's a good part of the world. So yeah.
Yes, indeed. And you mentioned there, Tim, actually, the Brighton Fringe and the Brighton Festival starts just this weekend, isn't it? The bank holiday weekend. So that's always very exciting. Have you got anything planned, anything you've booked in to go and see that you're excited to see?
Yeah, we booked. I can't even remember what they are, but Sarah and I know it. It runs for the whole of May, and Sarah and I know it as Mayhem because there is so much going on, and we're going to the Great Escape as well. So in the middle of the Brighton Festival, you've also got a 4-day music festival with hundreds of acts in sort of multitude of different venues.
Yes.
And so you sort of drift around town from one grotty little bar to another, listening to bands. So we've got that booked in, and then there'd just be all the fun of the Fringe, really.
So look, Tim, we're going to kick off with some dinner party questions. We're going to try and avoid and swerve the normal, hello, what do you do for a living type questions? And we're going to go more for the questions that might sort of tease out a bit more about you. First off is, what's giving you joy at the moment?
Recently, watching my son Ted getting heavily into making leather. So he's got into LARPing, which is sort of live action role play, where you essentially dress up in sort of Dungeons and Dragons world and run around in the woods with hundreds of other people. Not my bag, too many rules. But he's got into leather work. So last weekend we went to this amazing little lock-up garage, which has, this guy's got masses of amazing coloured leathers of every thickness. And Ted chose a hide, and we brought that back, and he's got this pattern, he's downloaded it. And Ted often gets distracted by things. He's a kid of his age where there's 1,000,001 distractions, but he's really into this. And that's really great. And it's nice watching him tackling quite complicated leather work. And yesterday we brought the cobbler's machine back from the workshop, which I bought when I was 21 in Granger Market in Newcastle from one of the cobblers. And he's just really into it. It's that's really good. It's good to see that level of focus on something quite complicated.
I mean, when you said leather work, obviously I was thinking of Brighton. There's a lot of leather work in Brighton.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a lot of leather work of different types. Leather and rubber. It's all going on. But he did. There are that. I joke, but there's an amazing leather worker at a chap called Wolfram Lure who has this absolutely beautiful workshop, which is, you walk into it, the smell of it is extraordinary. It looks like something out of a Disney movie. It is so charming. The colours of it are stunning. And it's such an ancient craft. Leather work hasn't changed really for hundreds and hundreds of years and has been a sort of common clothing technique around the world. And so it's just nice to sort of tap into these processes which have been the same for so long when so much is changing. To be just working with knives and drills and stitches it's rather lovely.
All right, I'm going to jump into our next question, which might probably builds on this. What are you curious about right now? Or is there a big question you're wrestling with?
Like lots of people, boringly, I'm curious about AI in a way, and I need to get my head around what bits of it I like and can use, and which bits of it are useful tools and which bits horrendous and derivative. So we get an enormous amount we get briefs through, lots of them are sort of, as everybody knows, AI slop. And you get these mad ideas coming through and you have to explain to the client that this is not going to work, or this hasn't been thought through because it's just been done by a robot. But I like tech at the same way as I like new ideas. I like new bits of software in the same new machines. And I like learning that stuff in the same way that I enjoy whittling. This week I've been whittling things on a spoke shave. So I'm simultaneously trying to learn AI and building myself as a shaving horse to make yurt poles. So it's I'm sort of split in different directions. But actually, it's learning new stuff. And this is a big new thing to learn. And I'm never going to get completely to grips with it. But I am intrigued as to how I can use it to help my process. I'm not interested in it to actually create designs, but within the business, I think it could be interesting. So that intrigues me.
Yeah, it's funny when you've spoke about learning new things. What I've noticed is from someone who, a background in arts and design, has been making stuff for years. I love making it. So you're always experimenting, which I think you would in your industry as well. But I've noticed how people are so open to, I'm experimenting with AI, where it almost feels like up till then there's been like, I'm not experimenting. So it's almost, I don't see people saying, I'm experimenting with leather on the weekend, or I'm experimenting, or you've just so much has come back saying, I've just got to experiment, try this, try that. And I thought, well, we could have tried this 30 years earlier and we'd be we've invented a lot more cool stuff and solved a lot more problems if we can just try this, try that. So when you think around learning stuff, I'm not sure because it's tech-based that people feel it's a bit safer to try things and fail, if that's the right word, or I don't know. I've just seen that piece. I'm not sure where it lands, but it's kicked off a curiosity of some sort.
I think there is a safety about being able to try things in your own bedroom and then delete it. You could work away quite quietly, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's part of the risk of it. In a way, you're not committing so much, and so it's a lighter touch. I can experiment with AI by literally typing a message into Google and seeing what happens. You're not really putting in all that much effort to do the first bit of engagement with it. Whereas if you want to learn a tool or you want to learn a material, you actually have to go and buy it. You have to go and find somewhere that's got it. You might have to go on a course. You might have to get some clay or whatever it is. And so, whereas we've all got, our computers give us access to so many bits of tech that AI is just another one that you might experiment with video editing because you can do it on your phone. And so it's an easy new thing to try in a way, isn't it? Because it's just so readily available.
This next question, Tim, for you is, how would you introduce yourself at a party?
This is one of the things I've struggled with this
Good
one
question
for years.
for
Even to describe the business. Say, look, immediately you give me the question and I can't even answer it. Tim from Plunge, and just see what people make of it. No, golly. Yeah, I do very much associate myself with Plunge Creations. And so I am creative director of a prop and costume making business. But that just doesn't really seem to tell enough of the story. So it's a question an answer that I struggle with all the time because I do so many different things. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so the follow-up question to that is, if you sit in between 3 and 4 things, what are those 3 and 4 things? So what are your intersections? You're like the little Venn diagram in the middle or something along those lines.
Got it. I would say I'm part zoologist and somebody who loves nature and likes being out in the wild. I'm part creative, which I don't think of myself as very creative. I see myself as more of a problem solver. I'm part a dad and partner and family guy who has a family and family responsibilities and all of that fun. I think I'm in that sort of triangle in a way, and but also I'm sort of kind of hungry for new things. Is the thought. I'm somebody who I want to see new stuff and immerse myself in new things. So yeah, maybe that's a fourth bit.
Can I just pick up? I did actually notice that, as obviously doing a little bit of research prior to coming into this, Tim. Yeah, the zoology thing, Newcastle University, and I just saw that. I thought, wow, that's interesting. It's so distinct, isn't it?
Well, I was at school. I was split in 2 different directions. I was sciencey, and then I was also creative. So I'd either be doing elaborate science projects and putting way too much effort into them, or I would be, in the art department, working on the ceramics or whatever it might be. So then but it was the creative stuff that I found emotionally draining, and it was the art that would tear me up and make me doubt myself. And so by the time I'd done my A-levels with umpteen projects and pictures I didn't like or sculptures that weren't quite as good as I wanted them to be, I was sort of frazzled. And so I just went, you know what? I've got an A in biology. I'm going to go the zoology route, because I kind of wanted to be a marine biologist. And so studied zoology at Newcastle for about a year and a half, but sort of packed it up because it was a modular course which was essentially trying to get loads of kids all up to the same state by the end of the first year, which meant that I'd already done chemistry and biology and done really well at them, and they were trying to basically teach that to everybody again. So by the time of the end of the first year, I was bored to tears and got involved in the theatre work at in Newcastle. So I got involved in sort of fringe theatre there and I did what I promised myself I needed to do, because I've been involved in background of theatre for a while, so doing lighting and sets and costumes and things, and always sort of sat there harping from the back, oh God, that director doesn't know what he's doing. This is me, age 17 or 18, thinking I knew what I was doing. And I thought, go on, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. So I then directed a play at Newcastle, the Gulbenkian Theatre, which was incredibly fun and terrifying and so far out of my depth. I have never concentrated so hard in my life. And it was great. And it sort of distracted me from zoology. And then eventually I just thought, I need to make things again. So I just sort of set up a little workshop studio in my flat, in my house in Newcastle. In my room, I had my bed pressed up against the ceiling so that I could have a workshop and design space underneath it. I had a sewing table that folded out over a sofa with a sewing machine that came out of the fireplace.
Oh, wow.
And it was all going on in this tiny little space. And I started making clothes again, and then got back into theatre through that. And that's how I sort of ended up morphing back into the maker that I wanted to be.
It's fascinating.
Well, that's a nice jump into another question I've got for you at our dinner party. When do you feel most alive, or when do you feel most creatively alive? Or maybe they're the same thing.
I think most creatively alive is when I've been away from other people for a little bit, when I've experienced something new and then been alone afterwards, so that there's enough time for it to sort of percolate, and enough time to sort of think about what you really want to do. I find the sort of distractions of everything else and other people's requirements can be quite, really distracting and stop me from going in the directions I necessarily want to do. I'll often start literally the back of an envelope, because there's something about a back of an envelope which doesn't matter. And so there's if I'm drawing in a sketch pad, I know that sketch pad might be around for a while, so I might worry about it. But on the back of an envelope, I know that nothing I write on the back of an envelope or draw on the back of an envelope or design on the back of an envelope matters. And so I can start playing, and then I can get in the workshop or, into some other sort of space and start creating. I like also just being out in the countryside, where you're away from noise and distraction, and then you can just let your mind wander. So those sort of spaces. And then I just need to get my head down. So when I'm making things, there's no chit chat. I'm heads down, I'm creating it, I'm whirling around the workshop. Sometimes just stick on some music on a headphone, but generally I just want the noise of the tools and the things that I'm working with to be guiding me.
Is that the back of the envelope stuff? So do you genuinely get rid of those, or could you autograph some and keep them for me, Tim? Just in case you become sort of.
Well, I've got, so many of the Masked Singer costumes are literally they're on tiny scraps of paper, and sometimes I stuff them in a sort of a folder, but often I just sew them away. I'm currently designing a new fence structure for the back garden. It's all happening on the back of envelopes, rather than I've got CAD software I can use. I can model things in 3D. I can render them. I can download. I can output all of the timber requirements. No, I'm doing it on the back of an envelope and figure it out that way, because then I don't need to worry if it goes wrong, because I can just blame the fact I didn't spend the time on it. But
I like it. It's so lo-fi.
It's so lo-fi.
Have you woven a tapestry with an idea?
But that's why pencil's so good, is that so often nowadays we're getting briefs through which have been 3D rendered, or they've been created by AI, and they look shiny and done. You just go, oh God, really? That's kind of, it's done now. I'm not interested in the rest of it, because there's no more creative project. You're just problem solving. Whereas if you if your designs start on pencil, you can then imagine the bits that aren't filled in. You can imagine the colors. It comes to life in your imagination rather than your imagination being essentially, there is no imagination once something's been 3D rendered. It's already there. Whereas with a pencil sketch, there's so much more to do and there's so much more freedom from just sketching things in pencil. Love it.
Is there an analogy there to that thing where people say, oh, it was so much better in the book was so much better than the film. The book allowed me to imagine something that could never be conveyed on the screen. Or when it has been conveyed on the screen, you go, oh, well, that's done. And that's not what I expected. That's ruined it for me. I haven't been allowed to imagine.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think your imagination can fill in so many more of the gaps and you don't need it to be resolved. So if I were to describe some crazy sculpture that's sitting in a forum in Rome or something, you can pick on the bits that matter to you, but you don't need to know what the background looks like. You don't need to know how many columns there are in the background. Your imagination focuses on the bit that matters to you and leaves out the rest of the clutter. And I think that you can, by working in pencil and lots of the proposals that we do, we work with PR companies who expect everything to arrive completely like, oh, can you put this in a central London square? And oh, can you have 50 people looking at it and this, that, and the other in order to convey the idea? And often I'll just go back to them with a sketch that I've lightly coloured in, but it's got spirit to it. And it's got the spirit of what they're trying to achieve, which is it's exciting, it's dramatic. It's going to have some lighting on it, this, that, and the other. And they can use that to then talk to their client without their client being totally locked in on the minutiae of it, because their client can then imagine extra bits into it. And they can go, oh, yeah, look, it could have an extra furry bit on the side. And it creates space for everybody in the chain to still add something of their spirit to it without it all being resolved from the get-go.
One of our previous guests, Dr. Barbara Doran, she talks a lot about this. When we actually draw, we're thinking, and we actually have neural pathways up and down our arms. So we often think, oh, that's just the output. The thinking's done in our head. But it's that, I don't know, virtuous cycle. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's that cycle of you make something that triggers something in your head, that triggers something in your hand, which then, so it works that back and forth piece. So it's actually thinking out loud might be the way to talk about it as well, rather than just recording what's in your head. And the other thing, I just might be in your house, everyone's always going, where is that bloody bill? It was here yesterday. Oh, sorry, it's got a picture on it. Yeah. I presented it to a client.
It's become something really important, actually. I know it was an important bill, but it's more important now, but it's the back of it that's important. But also with a pencil, you can, if you're having a side thought, you can do that so quickly. Whereas if I'm working in a piece of CAD software and designing something in 3D, having a side thought takes another 2 hours. Whereas if I can have a side thought and think of a completely different iteration, doodle it to the side of the initial drawing, and that's already down on paper, and then my brain's already chuntering at that one. But the other thing you need is to then walk away and not expect to get there immediately, to get to that resolution, and to let your brain chew it for ages. So often when we get complicated briefs, the first thing I do is open up a blank sheet of paper get a blank sheet of paper or something on screen and just stick anything on the screen or stick anything on a piece of paper. And then it's begun. And then that brief, you're already working on it. And while you're walking to the shops or everything, it's already going tick, 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 tick. You're going, how am I going to fix that? How do I do? And you might wake up at 4:00 in the morning with the resolution. But if you don't start that thing, you've then got to do all that thinking towards the end, which is never a good idea.
Yeah, because the blank canvas defends itself, doesn't it? You can look at it for years and nothing will magically appear, but whatever you put on there gives you a new frame of reference and triggers something in your mind as well. So, yeah, I like that.
Just as you were saying that as well, Tim, I found that as well a struggle for myself if I'm designing, I don't know, even if it's something like designing a workshop that I'm going to facilitate, like a day that you're going to put together and you've got these ideas for it. And I used to get quite anxious because all the loops were open. And I was anxious about having all these ideas unresolved, as you say. And I got more and more, I realized that's what I had to get comfortable with. I had to get comfortable with there being open loops and things unresolved. And then suddenly, almost like a mist would lift and you go, that's it. And it was everything you'd put together in the very first instance, these elements. and they suddenly just kind of sort of merge together, and you go, that was what I was waiting for. But it takes a bit of time.
It does take time, but ideas do take time, and we're in such a world of immediate responses. So
Yes.
so many clients get in touch and go, I need a 10-meter cat, and how much is that going to cost? And you go, blimey, give me a moment. I wasn't. You might have been thinking about this for 6 weeks, but it's literally just landed on my desk. But it happens all the time. People want an immediate response to what is essentially a really complex set of problems, to do with logistics, techniques, materials, booking freelancers, getting the crew together, so health and safety, this, that, and the other. And you go, give me a minute.
Give me a minute.
I'm going to have to drill into this.
Can I just confirm? You did say a 10-meter cat.
Yeah,
that
was
just said?
Again. That was from Cold Drops Yard. That was about 3 years ago. Somebody said, "We need a 10-meter cat." And I'm
What's that going to cost?
How much is that going to cost? And can you do it? I was like, we can do it. And I just said, but to be clear, you don't need a 10-meter cat. And they're like, no, we do. And I said, no, nobody does. Nobody needs a 10-meter cat. And I said, what's it for? Well, we're doing this activation. It's a 2-day activation. I'm like, just do you know what?
How
10
about a
meters
2-meter
is?
cat? Yeah.
10 meters is a 3.5-story house. It's like, you don't need that. And they eventually went, oh no, we could do it another way. And you're like, blimey, really? No, you really could.
You sound like Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is not the 10
often you're going, you are. You sort of look in their eyes and
this
you go,
is not the 10-meter cat you're looking for.
This is not what you need. We were asked to make we got this email from a woman in New Zealand. We're in the UK, right? There's literally an entire planet between us. And this email came through and it said, I'm looking to give my husband, it's my husband's 40th birthday. And for his birthday, I want to make him what looks like a 50-ton wild boar. I was like, oh, okay. So I did my due diligence. I then sort of worked out the volumetric of a wild boar, worked out that roughly it's going to weigh about a ton per cubic meter. So you work out you're going to have a 6 or 7 meter wild boar, about 5 meters tall, 3 meters across, transported from one side of the earth to the other. And I just sort of got in touch and I said, are you absolutely sure you want this? I said, we can do it for $1 million. And we can get, if you could pop 50% deposit in our bank account, we'll get cracking. And she went, oh, it's all right. You don't have to be like that. I found one at a local store. And
I found a 6-meter boar. Next.
I was just like, what was going on in that brain? But bless them, they got in touch. I know who can do this for us. Yeah. Plunge can do this. Plunge can make this and transport it for my husband's 40th birthday.
What do you and the team at Plunge Creations do? Because create these magical works of art, people have asked you for, so far, a lot of animals, a giant boar and a giant cat. But what do you do? Yeah, how would you describe what you do?
So we're a multidisciplinary team of makers. We make stuff that makes people go, oh, look at that. And that might be weird things on telly. It might be the costumes for the Masked Singer. So we do the sort of extreme end of costume making where the costumes are completely bananas and every single one of them is a one-off, and they might have lights in them. They might have movement in them. They're weird and wonderful. Or we're working with PR companies who are trying to make people go, oh, look at that product, or look at that film, or whatever that is. So we might be making installations in public spaces, giant sculptures out of fiberglass. We might be bringing computer games to life. So we work at some of the sort of games cons and take virtual characters from film and computer games and this, that, and the other, render them in 3 dimensions so that people have actually got something tangible to look at. And then we've also designed a lot of the St. Pancras Christmas trees. So again, another sort of giant sculptures which have to look, magical and exciting and bring a little sense of wonder to train station at Christmas. So we've got wood workshop where we've got clever carpenters. We've got a metal shop for sort of doing the heavy engineering bits. We've got a sculpture workshop where we're working in clay and polystyrene and fiberglass and rubbers and all that sort of stuff, and the really sticky, messy stuff that people walk in and go, oh, I like the smell of this room, and you're thinking it's not very good for you. And then we've also got what we gaily call a clean room, which has got the costume work in it, and often we do sort of finishing and assembling of things in there. We've got electronics and electrics, vinyl, graphics, and this, that, and the other, 3D printers, laser cutters. So we span a ludicrously large number of disciplines, which is complicated because a lot of the gear then sits there idle for a lot of the time. And so, but we've got full-time makers and freelancers, and we just skill up and skill down depending on what bizarre project is coming through the door.
So what's your mix of people? Like, you would have, I guess, some generalists, but you must also have specialists, everyone from, I'm going to say seamstress. I can't think of the gender neutral word for that. Seamster. That might be it. Or you've got leather makers, you've got, I don't know, concreters. What's the extreme end of those scales with people who you've got in the team?
So we've worked with, so extreme end, I'd say some of the sort of engineers who work with, who have serious engineering chops in order to work out the weird things that we're making. We worked with a wig maker who hand tied every hair onto Prince Harry's beard for a spitting image Prince Harry puppet. You know, we're making animatronic eyes. So we've got people who work in sort of 3D modeling software and people who can do weird bits of programming and stuff like that. We've got tailors and seamstresses. I think you're right. Seamstress it's so often a world that is occupied by women, but there are men who do it too, which is nice. So, but they're generally called tailors. So that's the general word of sexism right there.
Okay.
But we also have carpenters, engineers, some really clever sculptors, particular people who can spray paints in particularly clever ways, working with sort of iridescence and metallics and things like that. So we've got a sort of pool of main freelancers, and then sometimes we need to go out and find somebody really clever.
Yeah.
And that's fun. And they're quite scary because they're very serious.
Yeah. Your jobs board must look really weird. Yeah. We're looking for a beard maker. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the business runs off a whole number of apps that I've designed over the years, which deal with everything from timesheets to inventory and where things are and all that jazz. But we've also got one which is Crew Hunter, which is a database of about 2,500 freelancers around the UK where
weirdos.
You've got people who can do really clever stuff. And so you can sort of type into there and go, all right, who does wig making? And it's like, okay, I can find them.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thinking about the clients, I mean, you mentioned obviously this lady in New Zealand wanting a 50-ton boar delivered. But generally with clients, when they come to you with their briefs, on your website, you talk about if you've got a big idea and you want to bring it to life, bring it to us. Do people step up to that? Do they really go, right, we want this, having let their imagination run wild? Or do you have to, in those early conversations, push them and go, have you thought of this? And hey, look, why don't we take it this way? And that's even beyond what you've really thought about. Does that make sense? Do they step up? Yeah,
it does. I think it can go both ways. Some clients will come to us with something very clear and very specific that they're after. And then and it depends what point of the chain you're interacting. So we were chatting to a theatre company the other day who literally came in and went, we're looking to produce a new piece of work and we want it to have some physical stuff in it. That was the brief. And so we're at that early stage where we can then start chatting about loads of ideas. We can really conceptualize it. Whereas sometimes you're working with PR companies who are coming to you with a brief, which is they've got a vague idea of what they want, and they've come up with it. No, PR companies, often what they want is a big version of what the company sells. So if they sell shoes, they'll make a big shoe. And sometimes you go, okay, well, we can go a bit further than that. You can get on design, you get on Zoom and you have a chat with people. And sometimes you can go down a completely different tangent and just sow the seeds of some other ideas, simply because we have so many ideas come to us we've got an amazing team whose brains are firing all the time, and they will know what's achievable, what's a waste of money. There are certain if people come to us with giant clear things like a giant bottle or something like that, you go, it's going to be too expensive. And almost always there's a better way of doing it. But it seems it's not until you know the making process that you realize certain things are just very hard to achieve. And then you just sort of try and send the sometimes you just want to solve the problem for the client and you go, yeah, we've got you. You hold them by the hand and you say, don't worry, it sounds weird, it sounds mad, but we've got this. And other times you try and sort of nudge them in new directions. And sometimes they look at you like you're mad, and other times they're quite grateful for the input. So there's so many different people out there. The way you deal with them has to vary, right, all the time.
And in that regard, there's always something rewarding to be had through whatever direction they take. Or do you kind of go, oh, we love it where they just turn up and say, we want some physical stuff. And you go, brilliant, we'll co-create this and it's going to be lovely because we'll get to let our imaginations run wild.
I think generally a lot of the stuff it's not that our imaginations run wild, because a lot of what we're doing is quite serious. We're dealing with people's IP, we're dealing with design. It has to look like it does in the drawing, or it has to look like that animated character. And so it's not that your imagination is running wild, but your problem solving is, in that all of these things have different problems to them. Where's the structure going to go? What material are you going to use? How are you going to achieve quite that weird finish? How do you scale up feathers from actual bird-sized feathers to vast feathers? There are problems to do with the sort of technicality of it, which is a lot of what the team likes dealing with. We've got a whole group of people who get incredibly bored incredibly quickly. And so feeding them new problems to deal with is kind of what keeps us fired up. But it's also why it's difficult. It's a difficult business in that we've unlearned all the lessons of Henry Ford, in that we're not just making one thing again and again and again, making really efficient. We've thrown all that efficiency out the window and everything is new. And so it's a wasteful process in that we are, and that's problematic environmentally as well. But it's a wasteful process in that we're spending a lot of time figuring out how to make something again from scratch, because we're in the world of novelty. We're trying to create novelty for clients or venues or shows or whatever it is. And so in doing that, it has to be new and therefore is going to be complicated.
So the brief comes in, you've got such a multidisciplinary team. What does that process look like? And I've got that, hey, first I need to look for an envelope and start there. But how do you move that? And I guess this is my world, like moving an idea from, design to, or initial concept to a design, then a prototype, then testing, experimenting. What does that look like in your world? Are some things that you, I guess, always do as part of that sort of anchor that process?
We always get as many people in the room as possible. I think is one of the key things, is that if you can't figure out how to do something, you haven't got enough people in the room. And I think it's because even if it's not your discipline, everybody will have a bright idea as to how something might go. So we'll try and, so when we get a brief together, we'll pull together production manager, resource manager, members of the making team, other project managers, and we'll try and get a group of interested people in the room. And we have a Monday meeting where we discuss all the projects that might be coming up, all the quotes that are running through, and then we'll sort of make little subgroups and work out who's going to go and chat about what project with who, and how we're going to then figure that out. And it might be over the outcome of that meeting, you're going to need to get an engineer in at that stage, or you're going to need to get a specialist for certain bits. But the first thing is getting lots of people in the room and seeing what their bright ideas are and seeing how they think you should proceed with it. And then, because that then gives everybody a sense of ownership as well. And it means that then they can go away and they're quietly working on it in the background in their heads. And we've done that back of an envelope, that initial back of an envelope thought. And you've then got 6 or 8 brains working on it quietly for the next 2 or 3 days. And then you can come back and meet up again. And you'll have resolved a lot of the problems which you hadn't dealt with in that first chit chat. Often it's about running the numbers. You start, you look at how tall it needs to be, take it seriously, and then think about, how big it's going to be, what size bit of space you're going to need to make it, how long is it likely to take. And so there's a lot of spreadsheeting that goes on, which is really useful. It means that you can start to quantify the project and it starts to feel less amorphous. It's not just this huge thing disappearing out into the distance ahead of you. It's something that you've got a bit of a handle on. So that sort of serious process of production planning and all that jazz starts to happen fairly soon.
So a couple of things I heard there. I think you're mirroring the space that every corporate organization would love, a psychologically safe place to share ideas. Because what I love hearing that everyone comes in with their bright idea. And I love, from what I'm gathering, I love to be in one of these rooms because you can suggest anything in that mishmash of ideas. People go away and come up. There's something in there, which I think, it's really hard to do. Yeah, because same thing would happen in your work, but all of a sudden there's someone who's always got their risk hat on. Or that would cost. What would that do? Because if you give yourself, what I'm hearing, that space just to go all ideas out, and then we can spreadsheet later, but we know there'll be something good. And also, if you're not solving it, you need different people in the room. I love that type of thing. It's just you sound like the best boss in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to, because I was struck by that as well, because obviously some of the work that we would do, Tim, with teams, it's often the case, whether it's making widgets or selling services, whatever it is, if there's problems, you'll have this small sort of cadre of people and they think they have to solve it and they'll immediately try and solve it. They're always leaping to some solution before they've defined, well, what type of problem is this? And who should be the people in the room to solve such a problem? Has anybody solved it before? And so I have this idea of they have to think about stuff outside of the box. If the problem's in the box, before they open it and start to go, right, let's solve this, just define, what does the box look like? What type of lock mechanism does it have on it? Who should be in the room and have a look at this box with the problem in it? And it's a constant challenge. So I do like that as well, that you can, if we can't solve it or haven't got a clue how to solve it, we haven't got the right people in the room.
So when at some stage you've got the concept, you're working out, well, this is the specs of that. Do you then do like a mini, like a maquette or something, or a prototype might be another version of that? What does that exist in small form first before or do you just get a block of marble and chip away and all of a sudden there's, Michelangelo's angel or something, like, which I think is bullshit actually, but yeah.
It's funny you say it. Somewhere on the internet, there is a video of me pretending to carve Michelangelo's David from marble. He is standing atop a Zanussi washing machine, and I am dusting what is meant to look like marble flakes off his shoulder as part of a PR stunt for Zanussi washing machines, I think. But it's actually just little bits of polystyrene which we sprinkled there. And I go, and I'm chipping away with a fake. It's one of those moments that sort of gives me a little bit of shame. But yeah, anyway, to get back to your question, yes, we do. In order to work out what you're going to make, we might make maquettes. So we might make maquettes in clay or in plasticine, essentially, sort of slightly expensive plasticine, but plasticine nonetheless. Or we'll be modeling it up in 3D on the computer, or it will start as, some of the Masked Singer costumes, they just start as a stupid name, onomatopoeia for one of the Masked Dancer costumes. It was like, I just wanted to make an onomatopoeia costume. So then you've got to just sort of sketch it and doodle it. And so that it might be that you go straight from that sketch into production. But more often than not, it depends how much the clients trust you. Sometimes the clients trust you to just crack on and get it right. And so that's the relationship we got with Bandicoot and the Masked Singer. But often we're having to then maquette it, do lots of sampling. We're currently working on a sort of a film asset, which has involved, we've got people in the States that we're dealing with who really know the characters from the film. We've got half of the information that we need that we're working from. We're coming up with concept designs. Then we're going to maquette it. We've also done loads of sampling. And so all of that sort of stuff gets fed into what then eventually comes out and then gives the client the confidence to go, right, we're ready. Or it means that sometimes we're making things in maquette in order to 3D scan them and then take patterns off them. So that's another route that we go down. So yeah, there are lots of sort of small versions of the big things that we've made dotted around the workshop, because once you've made a nice maquette, you kind of go, oh, that's
pretty decent, yeah.
And it ends up on a shelf. So we've got a little Mickey Mouse on a shelf. We've got some sort of character called King Robert. He's sitting on a shelf, and so we get through much more plasticine than we use because a lot of it doesn't get melted down and used again.
What was that show they used to have, was back in the day, talking about watching old English TV shows? Morph, was that his name? The little Was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's Morph then turned into Aardman's eventually.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and Morph and Tony Hart for me was one of those artists. It was an amazing show which encouraged kids
Yeah.
to produce art, and it made doing that really accessible. And then there were these amazing little sequences with Morph and Chad, who was his badly behaved friend.
Was it a horse? No, that was Gumby. I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's different.
Go, yeah.
Morph was brown and Chad was white, and Chad was badly behaved and was always trying to screw with Morph's plans. But one of the nice things we did years ago was we made a giant Shaun the Sheep to stick on the South Bank. And it was only meant to be there for a day, and it was all part of a promotion thing. And you're thinking, it's a lot of effort to go through for a day. And then Aardman's got in touch and went, we have that. Can we stick that in our foyer? And I think it's still there. And so it's nice when the things that we make last, where they get used again, where people can still enjoy them, because a lot of the stuff we do is fairly temporary, and that's problematic at times. But that's the world of spectacle. It's got to be new. It's got to be interesting.
I must ask, Tim, just as you touched on Masked Singer there, that obviously my wife and kids like Masked Singer. So and I was saying, I'm going to speak to Tim today. And they were saying, tell him we like, Leslie, like Can of Worms was one of those. Then there were some others, sausage. There was the dressed crab, which I remember, which was Gregory Porter. There was Wolf and Marty Pello. And I particularly remember that one because I went to your open day at your workshop and tried on the wolf's head. So I've tried on the same thing that was worn by Wet Marty Pello. So that was a moment. But then I did notice on your website, and it's just made me think about the London Marathon again. You say that you've created chickpea testicles, jelly palaces, dinosaurs made of crumpets, and a talking toilet. And I did think, I wonder what it'd been like if I'd been passed by a chickpea testicle rather than an orange in the London Marathon.
You might have been passed by Daddy Pig. We also made Daddy Pig, who was running in the marathon this time. So Daddy Pig was running alongside Joe Wicks. So he was down there, and apparently he managed it in about 4.5 hours, I think. So
it's just incredible I think there's definitely got to be a race where everyone's dressed up. So that would be all the elite runners. And imagine the commentary. And here now is chickpea testicle is just overtaken the talking toilet. This is going to be amazing. Sub 2 hours.
I'd forgotten about the chickpea testicle. It was this strange.
I'm not sure how.
Strange comedy show, and it was a massive sculpture of a chickpea that was meant to look like 2 huge testicles. And you just thought, as the brief came in, you went, really? That's really on the outside of what we've made a bizarre number of toilets. Like we once made a 4-meter toilet for a bathware manufacturer, and it had to have a room inside it. So there's this vast toilet in this exhibition floor and a room inside. So you went into the toilet and you watched a film about environmental impact of toilets and how this toilet recycled its water from the cistern into the sink and you just thought, wow, I'm not sure I want to be inside a toilet watching a film, but it was somebody's crazy idea, and we just built the toilet. You just do what you're told sometimes.
So you'd walk into the bowl, and then maybe was it screened up on the cistern? Was that okay?
You sort of walked in the side as if you'd made a hole into the side of the bowl of the toilet, and then you went in and you sort of looked up. Which, if the lid had been open, you'd have been looking straight at a guy pissing at you. But that was where the TV screen was. And we've made a giant pink toilet. We've done a toilet costumes. We did a dunny costume for the Masked Singer, which was really good fun. I can't remember the name of the comic, but he was apparently so into it because he drives around on a motorized toilet. And you go, we actually found probably the only comic in the UK who has a motorized toilet that they drive around on. So the moment they saw the dunny costume drawn out, which we thought was going to be a fairly hard sell, he just went straight for it.
A final question. How do you manage you talked about that collaboration process, and it starts with that ideas coming into the room and then it moves into sort of prototyping. But how do you manage the tension between that creative process and, as you said, all the spreadsheets and the deadlines and, the budgeting that sits behind that. And what's that like? Does it ever tip one way or the other? And what's the thing to navigate?
It does. So it's always there. We're not a profit share outfit. It's a business, and we've got to hit the bottom line. And so the numbers are always there. And we know any creative will tell you that when they promise something's going to take 2 weeks, it takes 3 weeks, because it always does. It always takes longer. And it's partly that creatives are less disciplined in a way because they are kind of enjoying it, or they are trying to create something with that extra bit of love. So when we did the St. Pancras Christmas tree for Wicked, it wasn't a great money spinner, but we were really proud of it. It looked amazing. There was so much love had been poured into it, but it's difficult to step back and go, actually, we've only got 2 more weeks on this, or we've only got this much time and we've got to get it done, because otherwise we're going to start going over budget, because you've got all the overheads of the business and all the boring guff, right? And so, but keeping people on board with that process and discussing with the team how long is available and therefore what routes we're going to have to go down to get from A to B, whilst at the same time delivering that love that you want to put into the things that you do, it is a constant battle. And it's why it's never going to be a hugely profitable business, but it just about washes its face every year. You sort of make it through, and at the end of it, you have to look at your pictures again. You have to look at your photos, your Instagram reel, whatever it is, to go, oh, look at everything we did, because you don't want to look at your bank balance. You do. Looking at the bank balance is like infinitely depressing, but looking at the things that you've created makes you really proud. And you can say to the team, look, this is what we did. These are the things we made. Here are all the happy kids that looked at it. We've got an open weekend coming up in a couple of weekends as part of the Brighton open houses. And there'll be lots of kids and families wandering around. And it's when you see what you do reflected in somebody else's eyes, when you see them see the workshop afresh, or the things that you've made for the first time, we're all used to it. But when somebody else sees it and you see that joy, that's where it really makes sense, because we're backroom boys and girls, right? We're behind the scenes, and we're not there for the moment where the people who receive this thing are actually there. We're not in St. Pancras Station when the crowds come in to look at the sculpture. We're not sitting in people's bedrooms watching telly with them. And so we don't necessarily see that moment where somebody else's eyes are on the things that we've done. And so, having people come into the workshop is lovely. And you chat to kids, and I have a habit of sort of asking the kid what they're into. The parents will reply. I'll ignore the parents. Child will be shy. I will then ignore the parents again. And eventually I'll get an answer out of the kids. And then the parents can bugger off and go and look at other bits of the workshop. And I can find out what this kid's into and what bit of the workshop I need to show them, and what they need to see, and what it is in their creativity, what they like making. Or sometimes they like playing on Fortnite. And it's like, go on, why? And I want to know what's inspiring them in that process, and what are the connections to the things we do, and how can I make that real for them? And so, seeing yourself reflected in somebody else's eyes is nice.
What I was thinking as you were saying it, Tim, there was, you can't price in the love. You talked about love quite a lot there. And you go, and you can't charge for it, can you?
No.
You couldn't turn around to me. As a line item.
Love.
Yeah, that's it. There's going to be 15% extra love, and then you can put the VAT on after that.
So, Tim, what we've got now is a thought experiment, and we've taken inspiration for this thought experiment, which, as you know, are things that philosophers would use to expand their thinking around ideas and explore concepts, etc. But as ever, that's nothing of what we do here. It's more like 1970s game show. And so this one is called...
cruelly said, I will know.
Who's that? And we've gone with, who's that behind the mask? So we're going to give you a series of descriptions of people or characters that might be famous for having a mask that obscures their identity. So I'll read a description, may throw in a catchphrase, and you've got to guess who I'm describing. So I'll start. This is someone who really brings about green-faced chaos, total cartoon madness. Would you like a catchphrase?
Cool. Yeah, go on, give us a catchphrase.
Somebody stop me.
Oh, yes, this was Jim Carrey in The Mask.
Yes.
It was great fun, that. And my God, Jim Carrey, when you delve further into his work, I think he's magical. Man in the Moon, I think, is the movie, which is about him, and it's just stunning. Yeah. What a bugger.
And can you remember his name in the movie, like his character?
Oh, no, I can't.
Stanley Ipkiss was the character.
That's
Ipkiss.
right.
Yeah, now that you say it, I remember it, but not in a million years.
It's been a long time. I haven't seen that movie for a very long time. That's really going back some.
All right. Okay, the next one. The classic vigilante whose mask is as much a psychological symbol as a disguise.
That was Zorro.
Oh, I'm going to pay that. It's not the one we've got. There's another one.
Oh. Go on. Give us. I might need a catchphrase.
And
then.
he says,
catchphrase.
"Hey, He's got that sort of deep.
Oh, the Batman.
Yeah, the Batman.
Yeah.
The Batman. Yeah.
So this comes back to what I think is complete sideways, but this is what's really interesting about The Masked Singer. Masks historically are a way of separating you from your audience, right? They create distance. They can be used to terrify people. They're used to, in theatre, they're often used to sort of create a sense of weird. And in The Masked Singer, we have to go the other way, and we have to make this mask something that's really friendly and really fun and really enjoyable and not terrifying at all. And so that's one of the design challenges for me and the team now, is how do we put new masked characters on stage that kids and families are going to engage with really quickly and not find completely freaky and terrifying. And I think it's really interesting, because the Batman mask is to create distance and to make him other. And that's what, a mask kills your face. Your face is gone. In The Masked Singer, you don't even see people's eyes. So you've vanished. The person has vanished, and yet they've got to be able to convey a whole new character and be fun and engaging and make you want to vote for them.
You've turned this from a 1970s game show into a proper thought experiment,
Yeah,
Tim. I'm very
deep
impressed.
Philosophical note. You've raised the bar dramatically.
You have raised the bar. Future
Sorry,
guests.
I'm getting right in the middle of your game. Sorry.
No, it's
Future
good.
guests,
back on
watch
track.
out. I think there is something to explore here. But nonetheless, let's go with another one here. This is one of the most iconic masks in film, blending menace, identity, and tragedy. Menace.
Menace.
Go for someone who's menacing. I'll give you a catchphrase if you want.
Oh, go on. Yeah, go on. I need a catchphrase.
The force is strong with this one.
For the listeners at home, you did a full-on mask impression.
Yeah,
and actually gave yourself a facial mask there for Darth Vader. That's excellent.
Okay, that's very good. And I think really John did these so he could actually just do these catchphrases. Really. Okay, next one. Orange mask, pizza obsession, and comic relief energy.
Orange mask. No, I'm not finding it.
Okay, I'll give you, it's an animal, or from the animal family.
Animal.
Yeah, you should get this. You're a zoologist.
Yeah. I can see you dropped out at year one.
I don't remember this in my zoology lessons in Newcastle, but the masked animals of the Amazon, there's 4 orange-faced...
Orange mask.
Is it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes.
Hey, there we are.
And the one we're looking for...
I found myself in a basement with them once, in that they used to be...
Big night.
I used to work next... I used to work in Camden next to the Associated Press, which is in the Interchange building, and in the cellars underneath there, which are the old horse tunnels, it connects through to Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and all of their molds and things were down in the basement. You go down there secretly, break in and go around with a torch and look at these incredibly spooky things in the dark.
I'll do the last one. Famous for their robot helmets and banging tunes.
Daft Punk.
Yeah, nice. We have some local DJs who are called Daft Chunk, and they're just fat Daft Punks. So they're pretty good, though. And that high-quality thought experiment was, who's that behind the mask? All right, we're going to move into our not so serious business podcast advice time, but also in a fast and snappy way as we do a rapid fire round right through to the end of our show. So, not sure if this one can be answered rapidly. How might the education system better encourage and develop curiosity and creativity in children? And the reason I'm talking about this, you've got a love of making, and making helps us create meaning and exercises our brain. So how can maybe we encourage a love of making in children or continue to encourage it?
I think the education system has to prioritise it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And realise that the benefits of it span all subjects. The greatest maths thinkers are creative people. And so it's essential that we are creative, because otherwise we're just doing the same thing as everybody else. If the creativity is fundamentally about doing something new. So schools need to just make it important. And I think the schools allow kids the space and time to play within their day or within the month or within their term time. I think they're the ones that are going to do the best. John's wife, Leslie, she has injected a theatrical joy and energy into the school that she works at, which is unbelievable, and has glued all of the kids together throughout the years, because they're involved in drama that spans all of their year groups. And that, I think that's so important, to be able to be in a non-competitive, creative environment with people of different ages from different places. So I think, just trying to glue your school together through creativity.
That's excellent. Thinking to us now as we become adults then, and we go out into the working world, and we often find ourselves working in organisations in teams, a similar kind of thing. I mean, whatever it is they need to do, whether it's widgets or services or whatever, how can they be more creative, more playful and curious in the way that your team does and the way you described some of your process earlier?
I think that thing of getting lots of people in a room to think of ideas and to find space outside of the daily grind of running businesses to think of what a better future for every business might be, which is and so it might be that you're just making nuts and bolts, but a creative nuts and bolts business will then be thinking, how do we better make our nuts and bolts? How do we do it in new, interesting ways? And that is a creative process of thinking of ways of improving your business. But in order to do that, you need, as I say, everybody in the room. You need to bring everybody's brains together and let them speak.
Yeah, I used to work for a large arts organisation, and we'd do exactly that. But I always used to laugh how we'd all get in the room and, okay, everyone, what's your thinking? And then every idea would be shut down and we'd just go with one. Yeah. So we're an arts organisation, but we ended up on the opposite end of that. Now, you're a leader, and look, you're in that exact same space. How do we create those conditions where this type of culture can take root, that making, experimenting, trying new things? And you might have already spoken about in your last answer, but is there anything else?
I think it's really difficult while businesses are stretched, and when business is tight, it's really hard to make room for that and to make it clear that it is still important. I'm not quite sure how you get that, how you create systems to do it. I think you sort of need to just schedule it in. I know that sounds really flippant, but you need to build it into your schedule and into your sort of manifesto as a business that you're going to do it. You just need to dedicate a bit of time each week to being creative and thinking of new ideas. And you need to listen out for the sort of mood within your business that is going to need creative thinking to get it through various problems. It might be storage problems, it might be HR problems, but it's going to need a bit of creative thinking to figure it out.
That's great.
All right, I like it.
So Tim, final few questions now. You mentioned manifesto a moment ago and how organisations need to build this in. Well, we're building the Occupational Philosophers manifesto. So what one thing of all your learning should we add to our manifesto?
I think talk to kids like they're adults and expect them to understand, because they will. And don't talk down to the next generation, because they're going to come up and be brighter than you are, and you'd better recognise it fast.
I don't know if we can get that all on a badge.
If you could put that down to 5
that's
words,
fine.
What would it be?
Just don't talk to. Sorry, just don't talk to kids like they're adults.
I like that. I like that.
We can run with that. Okay, now, are there any books or films we should be reading or watching right now that you'd recommend?
Oh, there's nothing. Oh, God, is there anything that comes to mind immediately? There's a Monsieur Hulot movie from the 1970s called Playtime, which is beyond bananas. It is a layered, hallucinatory, sort of almost dystopian imagining of Paris in the 70s. It's most strange, and you need to watch it time and time again to see quite how many strange and magical ideas are going on in it. It's a color movie, almost in black and white, because of the way it's been designed. But it's called Playtime, and it's really quite something.
Put that in the show notes.
Sounds like the early start to the Mighty Boosh or something. So yeah.
A final question for you, Tim. So we're going to project you into the future many years from now, and imagine that you've been guided into an old people's home, and it's the nurse leading you into the residence lounge, and as she opens the door, she introduces you to all the residents, who all look up expectantly. And she said, "Hello, everyone. Here's Tim. He's..." How would you like to be introduced?
Covered in clay.
We can run with that. I like it. Okay, what are you up to next? Like, you've got a massive projects on, I'm sure, but is there something, I know, big or different or a little bit left field?
I've been working with a friend of ours who's got a big garden space in the centre of Brighton, turning it into a sort of community creative art space. We've been digging an amphitheatre. We've constructed a sort of yurt exhibition space. It's smack bang in the middle of town, it is half an acre of land, which is unbelievable for the centre of Brighton. And it's on this really steep slope. And we've been digging and landscaping, and it's becoming a really interesting creative space, which was feeling pressured. And then Daisy, who owns the land, said, no, this is a 23-year theatrical production, and it's only just started. And so we're not even in the first act yet. So all the pressure's off, and it's going to play out over 23 years, and it's going to be amazing. And the other interesting, weird thing that we mixed up with is the People's Pyramid, which is a very odd art. It's a death cult and pyramid scheme. What is it? It's been created by Bill and Jimmy, who used to be the KLF, who are now the Jams. And it is a pyramid of bricks, and each brick has 23 grams of human remains in it. And you have your brick. I have my brick sitting here. You have a brick that sits on your mantelpiece. We've got bricks here, and it has a hole in it. And when you die, your ashes go into that brick, and it gets built into a pyramid. And it's a really interesting project, which is going to last for years and years and years, as people have a new relationship with death, which is it's a really weird sideline. So there's a happy thing to end on: a death cult and pyramid scheme.
Sorry, you mentioned that's the KLF guys, Bill Drummond. Is it?
Yeah, Bill Drummond and Jimmy Coulty dreamt it up, and it's now being organised by an increasingly large number of people who are sort of invested in this, what is becoming a rolling, extraordinary, different approach to death and dying. And people gather in Birkenhead every November, on November the 23rd, for the People's Day of Death, and new bricks are added to this pyramid. And you're then with other people saying goodbye to their loved ones, rather than everybody's family's death being something independent. It is a communal thing that you go back to year after year and remember those people. And it's a really interesting, to conceive of an art project that will never be finished within your lifetime, and that requires the creation of a whole new festival, relationship, celebration, memoriam. I don't know. There's so much layered into it. I think it's really interesting. Yeah. So we're increasingly mixed up in that.
And from what I know of the KLF, the ultimate reimaginers of life. So that sort of rings pretty true. Now, where can we find you, connect with you, buy you a virtual drink, whatever that may be? Where do you hang out online?
We are on the internet. We are plungecreations.co.uk. We've got an Instagram. We've got Facebook page. All of it you can find it all through the website. We're sort of dotted around. But yeah, the nicest way is to give us a call and come to Brighton and have a look.
And you have to have a look at I've been looking at your website the whole time we've been talking, because I can do two things at once, I want to say. But just the quality of the pictures and the photography is just amazing. Like it is beautiful. It's such a beautiful site. And I think it's often people always say, "Oh, I'm working on my site. It's not very good." I think your site is awesome. I think from what we've been talking about and what your site shares back, it's just hang out for 5 minutes. That's plungecreations.co.uk. It's a really nice visual feast. And I think captures all the energy of everything you've spoken to us about tonight.
Tim, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed our conversation. So, yeah, thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
So, Simon, great to chat to Tim there. I mean, really, he captures everything that we're continuously talking about, isn't it? In his own organisation, he has an organisation that has to play, be creative, exercise its imagination to the extreme, and at the same time, deliver stuff.
Yes.
Within budget, to a plan, to a deadline. I mean, it's everything, really. So it was, for me, fascinating. What did you catch in terms of some takeaways? What stood out?
A bunch of cool things. I guess right back to the beginning, he spoke around how he just starts by sketching and drawing. It's almost like that safe space for his mind to play. And he doesn't go to his computer. He does it in an analog way, which other people might have their digital version of analog, if that makes sense. But he just mucks about and appreciates that, look, he puts something down and realizes that I'm going to give it a little bit of time, something will come from it.
I did wonder whether one should go into your office next time and just scatter loads of envelopes around.
See what happens, yeah.
See what happens. It'd be quite a good visual reminder.
Why are all these bills here? Yeah.
That's it, yeah. Whose final demand is this?
Yeah. And I like just how they create that non-competitive environment. What other way could you have it? Yeah, because there is such a multiply disciplinary team working together. And I've heard people say the same thing on a film set. You just have to work together. Like, there's no option. You get together, you drop all your shit, and you just go, done. We're going to make a great film, done. Yeah, so we don't bring beef on set or all that type of stuff. Yeah, so, yeah, I loved it. A great epitome of how the environment you want for any type of productivity, and especially something where you're constantly having to reimagine and delight your customers.
Building on that, the whole start of the process where you get everyone in the room, give them space or give them time to speak, let everybody's ideas come forward, bright ideas. There was almost an assumption that everyone would have a bright idea as well. It's very positive. It assumes positive intent, everyone coming. And if you can't solve it, then you haven't got enough people in the room or you haven't got the right people in the room. So keep bringing them in because someone's going to have the spark that's needed.
And I think, though, that's what we need to remember. Everyone does have bright ideas, but years of conditioning of you can't or you shouldn't or you won't or that's not you, that's not your style, you're an engineer or, you often hear that, I'm an engineer, I'm not creative. So that's just showing the absolute, if that creativity is expected and acknowledged and accepted, yeah, absolutely, everyone's got ideas.
And interesting as well and it is a spectrum, isn't it, as well? Because you saw there that the creative thinking process that would come up with the badger and the sausage outfit and the dressed crab or whatever is coupled with, as he said, a constant need to problem solve.
Yeah.
And again, but that's very creative. The way people solve problems is a very, very creative process. So some people are going to excel in that area and you go, well, we need that as well. So you are part of this creative process because you're great at spotting how we might solve a particular problem, which could be a technical problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or whatever it is, an engineering problem. So, yeah, I thought that was fascinating. For me as well, his advice then kind of had a similar theme run through it, I think, which was how do we do it in schools? It was prioritise creativity, prioritise that play. You make more of it because it runs across all the different subjects and disciplines. He talked about that then in organisations. He said, let's be purposeful and schedule it. Schedule time for this stuff, dedicate time to this stuff, and just find space and time outside the grind. Space outside the grind, I thought, was another hashtag T-shirt moment.
Sounds like a skate bowl or something like that, or a skating park or something. So, and I just that point made me think around, I know, again, super hard when everyone's working harder than ever before. Targets always go up. Things get any easier at work, but whether you can actually just lock that in and say, look, we're just here to talk ideas at this meeting. There's no outcome other than that conversation. even that's something you could experiment with for a month for like an hour a week and see what happens.
And I think if you want to be profitable, make sure you price in the love.
Yeah, price in love. Okay. Discounted love this month. So, yeah. All right, John, that's us. What a great guest. I really love that conversation. I guess, again, at the heart of why we started the show, wanting to meet people taking the path less traveled, but sit parallel to, some of the work that happens in organizations. And there's so many things we can take from that as well. So, follow us.
Yeah, we'll say
subscribe.
Follow us, subscribe, tell friends, rate us, leave a review. That's useful to draw more people into the listening community, as it were. Check out the website, occupationalphilosophers.com. Get in touch if you've got ideas for guests or topics.
And we do have some people get in touch. So, yes, yeah.
We do. So, and check out the Substack, which is growing. That's providing now almost little summary one-pagers that give you stuff to think about and maybe discuss with your teams, questions to ponder with your team. So they're coming out with each episode as well.
In the meantime, stay curious, make stuff, play more, have fun, and
date life.